The 12th Conference on National Scenic and Historic Trails is brought to you by the Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the National Forest Service.
Vision of the National Scenic Trail, that we want to be more of a facilitator of organizations and actually have a specific expertise on board. And so a great deal of our efforts are reaching out to other partner organizations, collaborating with partner organizations to realize this vision, not to try to do it all ourselves. This was a fundamental strategic change in the organization that occurred in the spring of 2008, has therefore significant ramifications in the types of board members that we seek to develop. We also realized at that strategic session that, as was echoed today in the plenary session, one of the roles that our organization needed to play was to bring funds to the trail, that the agencies themselves did not have the capacity to bring the funds sufficient to constructing, maintaining, and protecting the trail to the level that the vision called for. And that they were asking us to take a greater and greater role in the financial underpinnings of the trail, and that we had to build a fundraising capacity in our organization. That was perhaps the most important aspect of our approach to developing a board. And our board, in collaboration with me, took upon ourselves to say that we will first and foremost become a fundraising board. This is a very profound, very significant change from the history of the board prior to 2008. Secondly, we realized that a role that we had to play on behalf of the trail that could not be played by the agencies was the political advocacy role on the Hill at Washington, both in terms of advocating for appropriations and in terms of advocating for agency policy that would impact the actual construction and maintenance of the trail as it played out on the ground there in the local areas, some of which I was intimating to Joel and to Carl this morning in my question. Therefore, we understood that another aspect of our board had to be that it had to have strong advocacy capacity in Washington. So my point is that we took our mission and our vision and developed a strategy, and out of that we started to build a sense of what kind of board members do we have. I'm not suggesting that you embrace the kinds of competencies that we came up with. I hope you don't. I hope you look at your own organization and say, what do we need on our board for us to accomplish our mission and our vision? And be clear about that, and intend to have that be your guideline for how you select board members. Other questions that come up might be, what about ethnicity on our board and other forms of diversification? What about affiliations? Should we bring on our board representatives from the different stakeholders in the trail, or should that not be part of our governing board? One of the things we realized immediately was that regardless of the competencies of board members, there were some universals that we had to look for. And one was obviously the ability that the board member brings in a specific area, either fundraising or governance, or we have some technical areas I'll talk about in a minute that we recognize. And the second one, and probably the most important one, is the engagement, the level of willingness of the board member to be active. Some of our board members, when I came on board in October, felt that their obligation started and stopped with the two annual or semi-annual meetings that we held. And I can tell you that very little gets done on a board, and perhaps many of you understand this, at those annual or semi-annual meetings. It's in the committees that are meeting regularly where the work is done. So we needed to make sure that any new board member coming on was willing to devote that kind of time to really work on these committees where they'll make a difference. We realized then that we had to codify these expectations and make them very apparent, not only to ourselves as we recruited board members, but to prospective board members as they considered whether or not they wanted to apply to be on our board. We wanted them to understand very clearly why we were interested in them, what their obligations would be to us if they did in fact join the board. It was summarized by a statement that I picked up recently called Work, Wealth, and Wisdom. Maybe some of you have seen that statement, but that's kind of a phrase that resonates with us as we think about our board development. Those three concepts, work, wealth, and wisdom. Look to each board member, whether a board member comes on because they have a special technical competence, or they're interested in fundraising for us or advocating on the Hill. We look for the quality of work, the quality of wealth, and the quality of wisdom that they bring to our board. With all of that, then, we created a matrix. This starts to really focus us then on our board recruitment. On the left here, we took a look at the competencies that we developed. And you can tell right away, first of all, it's a short list. There are many, many things that we could have put here, and we kept forcing ourselves to get a short list. Shorter the better, because it's more powerful if we have a board that's really focused. So here it is, fundraising, advocacy. Governance represents not only the board's responsibility to make sure that our organization is in compliance with its own bylaws, that I, as the executive director, am fulfilling my job adequately, but it also, and most importantly, covers the regeneration of the board. So our governance area talks about finding new board members and making sure we have a revitalization of our board consistently by some board members moving off and new board members coming on. We identified that we would from time to time need special technical expertise. And right now, we have three areas that we identified. Within that technical area are the areas of financial management. And because we're being asked by the Forest Service to become a hub of all trail information, we knew on the board we needed some GIS expertise. And because we feel that the Continental Divide National Scenic Trail and our organization secondarily are some of the best kept secrets in the United States, we knew we needed some marketing expertise on our board. So those are the three technical areas that we are presently filling as we go out and recruit on our board.
Well, that's about it for part 1 of the National Trail Conference. Stay tuned for part 2 for more on trail management.